Hi there everyone, how's it going? Be reviewing a new game for you today. And this game is one of those games that teaches you always pay attention to your opponent's move. Sometimes in chess, we feel as though the only move that matters is our next move and how we're going to attack. But an important part about becoming an intermediate player and starting as a beginner player is to start thinking about your opponent's moves and how they're going to affect you rather than going with your own plans. And I know that sounds really simple, but it's something that can be overlooked very easily. Getting into the game today, it begins with me playing d4, doing the trusty, boring London setup that people say, but this was a little bit less than a boring game. And my opponent begins with playing his knight to f6. I develop my bishop, and he plays a pawn move in the center. I decided to get out my knight, and he brings out his bishop, putting some pressure on my knight. If I ever decide to move my e2 pawn to e3, then I'm going to have a pin. And I decide to develop my knight. He then plays this move e6, giving some stability to his center. And I bring my knight in. There's a cheeky fork here, and he will have to do something to defend it. The move that I usually hope for somebody to do is bring out their bishop. That way I can get a knight for the bishop. And he does play the move, bringing his bishop out to block the check on his king. And if you didn't see this move, it's just me playing this move here with my knight on the next move if he doesn't do something about my threat. But he decides to bring out his bishop, what I planned on and hoped for. And he ends up getting doubled pawns here, giving me microscopic advantage, but I do enjoy this position a lot more. I like having my dark squared bishop. Anyway, I played this move here, and one thing that I could show you, although this move the computer is saying is good, bringing some stability to my center, a move that he could play next is moving his knight to the side of the board here. That way he could take my bishop, and I have literally nowhere for it to go. I could come here, but in general, the knight is going to be able to hit those two squares, and I will just lose it to a pawn moving it there. So really no escape for it now if that knight tries to attack. He decides to castle, and I kick the bishop. He backs up with it, and I develop my own light squared bishop here. He decides to come in with his knight, and I thought of this as a pretty good move, but didn't scare me in the slightest. There's no moves that he can do with his knight that are going to hurt me. No forks, no pieces hanging in my position so far. I mean, I do have a couple of pawns that are unguarded, but nothing that is capturable at the time. I decided to castle here. The opponent really wanted me to keep kicking that bishop back, but I decided to try and get to safety here. He ends up taking my knight. I think this was something he really didn't need to do. He's losing both of his bishops. I think my bishops are in a pretty good place to start coming alive in this game. And of course I take back with my queen. Don't want to double my pawns and weaken my king. And what I didn't see about this move, and he definitely saw, is he is now forking my pieces. And although he forks my pieces, I have this intermediate move. And I have the chance to checkmate him. As you can see, my queen is eyeing this pawn, putting some pressure. And of course, with just the easy move of pushing his pawn forward, it would stop that checkmate threat of these two squares being hit. But obviously, you can't just capture my rook because you would be losing material. And with perfect play, this is a balanced position. It gives no advantage to either time. But my opponent, not thinking about what I can do, he opts to take my rook, losing the game. And on the next move, I play checkmate and win. And as I was describing in the beginning of the video, one thing that a lot of beginners and sometimes even intermediate players, this guy was 1250, is thinking about what our opponent is going to do rather than just wanting to take material. And even though he would have won that rook, I had a very, very good position with my bishop staring into his king. He was losing his only active piece. As you can see, his queen, his knight, and 2 rooks have pretty much not moved at all in this game. He's moved a couple pawns forward, but in general, I liked my position, even if he had a follow-up to taking that rook. I think that I was still looking pretty good. But I hope you enjoyed the video today, maybe learned a thing or two.